What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to the first episode of Gun Guides for Black Ops 6. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats, as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in the game. And in today's episode, we're going to be kicking off the series with the XM4. And starting it off as always, let's have a look at our damage profile, and to the body, this gun is always going to be a 5 to 6 shot kill. And then to the head, we get a 1.3 times multiplier, which means in the maximum damage range, so up close, if we mix 3 headshots in with a body shot, we can get a 4-shot kill. And that's without the CHF barrel. When we include the CHF barrel, this boosts our headshot multiplier up to 1.42, which means in that maximum damage range, now we just need 2 headshots mixed in with 2 body shots for that 4-shot kill. And also now in that second damage range, 3 headshots can help, whereas without this barrel, headshots are totally useless within that range. As for our rate of fire, this is quite solid for an assault rifle at 800 rounds per minute, and what this means for our time to kill potential is with a 5-shot kill, our time to kill is 300 milliseconds, which is not too bad. It's right around the realm of average for assault rifles, just slightly below average. Whereas for our 6-shot kill potential, we've actually got quite a solid time to kill for an assault rifle at 375 milliseconds. Now, mixing those headshots into the equation, if we manage to get that 4-shot kill, we're now killing in 225 milliseconds, which is a very fast time to kill in this game. That's going to be highly competitive with SMGs. And then finally, for time to kill, let's have a look at rapid fire. If you use this attachment, it will boost our rate of fire up to 870 rounds per minute, meaning our 5-shot time to kill potential is now just 276 milliseconds. So a nice little improvement there. Now, of course, these time to kill potentials don't mean much unless we see the range potential behind this as well. So let's have a look at that. And as we can see here, our 5-shot kill range with the XM4 extends just beyond 40 meters, which is very impressive. That's going to take care of most gunfights you should find yourself in with 6v6. And it's also worth noting our hit scan range with a bullet velocity of 750 meters per second is just a little bit below that. It's 37.5 meters. So anything within that, the gun is literally hit scan. As for headshots, we've already kind of covered this. This is just a different way to visualize it. I wanted to throw that in there with and without the CHF barrel, so you can see within each of those ranges how many headshots you need in order to cut down the number of shots to kill. Then after that, let's talk about barrels a little bit. With the gain twist barrel, we get a 40% boost to our velocity and therefore a nice boost to our hit scan range, but no change to our actual damage range values. Whereas with the long barrel, we get a 40% boost to our damage ranges, which is amazing, but our hit scan range doesn't change at all since our velocity doesn't change at all. Whereas with the reinforced barrel, this is just a nice balance of those two stats. We get a 20% boost to both range as well as bullet velocity. And therefore, out of these 3 barrels for the XM4, that's the barrel I'm going to be leaning toward the most, just because it balances those stats out nicely. And then finally for this range chart, I also wanted to throw in rapid fire because rapid fire reduces our damage range as well as our bullet velocity by 10%. And I wanted to show you guys what that looks like on this chart. And that's actually not the only downside to rapid fire as well. It will also hurt our recoil, which we'll look at in just a little bit. But before we do that, let's dive into hardcore game modes really quickly here. This time around in Black Ops 6, in hardcore, we only have 22 health rather than the typical 30 health. And that's just to compensate for the fact that they wanted to bring the game back to 100 HP for core game modes while maintaining that slower style of time to kill for Call of Duty. So therefore they had to drop all the weapon damage values to compensate, and in order to compensate for that for hardcore, they had to drop that health value as well. And with the XM4, unfortunately, there's no one-shot kill potential to the body with the XM4 in hardcore game modes. However, with a headshot, with or without the CHF barrel, it will always be a one-shot kill at any range with this gun. Now, let's move on to our Hipfire stats. And what you're seeing here is the minimum spread is the spread when we're just standing still with the gun, whereas our maximum spread is the limits of our Hipfire spread. When we're moving and shooting and sliding, for instance, how far can that Hipfire spread out? And as you can see with the XM4, our minimum spread is right around average, just slightly worse than average since you want a lower value when it comes to Hipfire at 3.35 degrees. And it's a similar story with our maximum spread with this gun. It's just slightly worse than average for assault rifles, but not by much. And with that, we can finally take a look at recoil. And with the XM4, with the first 15 rounds or so, it kicks almost straight up, maybe a slight lean to the left, but pretty much straight up. And then after about 15 rounds, this is where it cuts pretty drastically over to the right, and you see quite a bit of horizontal recoil at that point. And another little thing to keep in mind here is there's a bit of bounciness to that recoil as well. As it follows that path, there's some deviation from that path, some bounciness to your gun, and that's primarily due to the gun kick value on this, so just something to consider with the XM4. Now with recoil, I also want to take a look at the CHF barrel, which we can see definitely increases our recoil by a noticeable margin, especially our vertical recoil. And with rapid fire, we also see an increase to our recoil values, so those are just some key downsides to be aware of if you're considering those attachments that can potentially have an impact on our time to kill potential. In either case, after that, let's get into our handling stats, and our aim down sight time is a little bit below average for assault rifles at 260 milliseconds. Our sprint to fire time is basically right on average for assault rifles at 190 milliseconds for our standard sprint out time and 290 milliseconds for our tactical sprint out time. Then our slide to fire value is just standard for assault rifles at 370 milliseconds, and our dive to fire time, unfortunately they don't state this in menus, but I did hand test this for all the guns, and as far as my hand testing has shown, the XM4 is just standard in this area for assault rifles at 470 milliseconds. As for the next section to take a look at here, this is our reload times with all of the different magazine attachments, since using magazines will affect our reload times. And a big thing to keep in mind throughout this series is I use the reload add time, and the reload add time just means the amount of time it takes to reload your gun while eliminating any unnecessary animation. So this means when you see that your magazine is full based on the numbers on the bottom right hand side of your screen as you're reloading, any animation after that is unnecessary. The gun is reloaded as far as the game is concerned, and you can cancel that animation out. So that's why I always focus on that time, because it's your true reload potential with the gun. And with the XM4, our base reload time is not bad for an assault rifle at 1.55 seconds. We of course have a standard magazine capacity at 30 rounds. And then here are all the magazine stats with our reload times. I'm not going to talk through every single one of them because you can just read them off for yourself, and I don't want to waste your time here, but I did want to talk about the flip mag, especially in this first episode here, because with the flip mag, we actually have 2 reload times. And it alternates between these times depending on whether or not you're just flipping your mag or replacing the mag entirely. But in either case, both of those reload times are quite fast with the flip mag. And this just leaves us with one final set of stats to cover before we get into those attachment combinations I put together for you guys, and this is our mobility stats. Keeping in mind that in the game's current state, the movement speeds that are stated in the menus, they're not always accurate. Sometimes they are, but other times they just don't align with what you actually see in the game. So just in case you're wondering why these values differ slightly, these are ones that are actually tested in-game, not just taken from the menus. And our base movement speed with the XM4 is basically average at 4.75 meters per second. And we're going to see that exact same trend continue with all of our movement speeds. Our aim walking speed is 3.25 meters per second, our sprint speed is 6.5 meters per second, and our tactical sprint speed is 7.85 meters per second. All of these values are right around that realm of average for assault rifles. And I would say that describes the XM4 nicely. In many ways, it's just kind of the average assault rifle. It doesn't really stand out in any particular area, whether that's in a good way or a bad way. It's just kind of the average assault rifle, which is not out of the ordinary for Call of Duty. Usually the M4 style rifle is just meant to be that jack of all trades, kind of average at everything sort of assault rifle. And with Black Ops 6, the XM4 is no exception. But with that, we can now finally move into some excellent attachment combinations I've got for you guys. These ones I've taken a lot of care to optimize and balance very nicely, while also trying to account for multiple playstyles. And let's just start this off with one of my personal favorites. This is my balanced stealth build. So with this one, of course, we're using that suppressor to stay off the radar. We're also using the extended mag 1, which gives us a 45 round magazine with no downsides. Our reload time doesn't even change. It's exactly the same as the base. We're also using the ergonomic grip, which is going to help with our aim down sight time, our slide to fire time, and our dive to fire time. So that allows us to play a little bit more aggressively with this setup. After that one, we're using the infiltrator stock, which in my eyes is the clear choice if you're using a stock, because it boosts our aim walking speed up to 3.9 meters per second, and that makes it very viable for strafing side to side in gunfights and actually being able to dodge some shots. And then finally, we're going to top this off with the recoil springs to cut down on all of our recoil values, primarily that gun kick value. That's a key difference you might notice between the 2 recoil plots on the bottom left there, is with this setup, there's less side-to-side bounce, and therefore it's actually quite a bit easier to control this recoil, even though the overall magnitude isn't really changing all that much. So that's the first one, and one of my personal favorites for the more flanky, aggressive playstyles. Next, for every one of these episodes, I'm planning on sharing a gunfighter setup, so with 8 attachments on there. And with my XM4 gunfighter loadout, we've got the Kepler Microflex optic, the compensator, the reinforced barrel to boost both our range and bullet velocity values. We've got that vertical foregrip to help with horizontal recoil. Extended mag 1, once again, since there's just no downsides to it, and 45 rounds is quite nice to have. We've got the commando rear grip to help with aim down sight and sprint out time. We once again have that infiltrator stock, just because in my eyes, that's the clear choice in the stock category, at least for the XM4. And then finally, we're once again topping it off with the recoil springs. And with this particular setup, you can see our recoil is very minimal. This is pretty much as accurate as you can possibly make the XM4 in this game. Plus, it handles really well, has an excellent range profile to it. Really, the only downside to this is we aren't improving our slide to fire or dive to fire times, but as long as you're not sliding around like crazy or diving around like crazy, this is just an amazing way to run the XM4. And this just leaves us with one last build I wanted to share for you guys today, and this is my aggressive XM4 build. If you want to treat this almost like an SMG, give this one a shot. With this, we're using rapid fire, so our rate of fire and time to kill values are improved, but it is harming our range and bullet velocity by 10%. We've also got the compensator and vertical foregrip on there to help counteract that increase to recoil that we see with rapid fire. And when we look at the recoil plot here, we actually see a net improvement because of those two attachments on there, which is nice to see. And then with the rear grip attachment, we once again have that ergonomic grip so we can be aggressive and slide into gunfights or dive into gunfights. And we also get a much snappier aim down sight time at just 210 milliseconds. And then finally, we're just topping this off with the Infiltrator stock, which allows us to, once again, strafe in those gunfights very effectively. And this one I've just found is really nice if you're trying to be as aggressive as possible and you don't mind showing up on that mini-map. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the XM4. As for my thoughts on this gun, like I said earlier, it's kind of just the average assault rifle. It's good at everything, super easy to use, but it doesn't necessarily dominate in any one particular area as much as some of the others might. In general though, great gun, really fun to use, but of course, those are just my opinions, and I do want to hear what you guys think about the XM4 in those comments down below. Also, just a few housekeeping things to take care of here. This time around with gun guides, in order to keep you guys updated throughout the year, I'm going to share a public version of my spreadsheet. It'll be a limited version, but there will be a version of my spreadsheet that I'll share in the comment section or description of this video. It might not be there right away, right when this goes live, but I do plan on adding it, and it will be in the description of all of my gun guides videos, and I will keep it updated as time goes on and as we see patches with various balancing that's taking place. Also, since we're just starting off this series, I'd love to hear from you guys down below as well. What's the next gun you'd like to see me cover in this series? I want to at least get a gauge on like which sorts of guns people want to see the most. I plan on covering those first before just going through category by category after the more popular ones. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.